the Office of the Prime Minister, and also, of course, as always, the wonderful technical team from the GIS that puts all of this together and makes this a really good post-cabinet press briefing. I'll start with our usual summary of what is happening and the discussions at Cabinet. At Cabinet, we spent a lot of time discussing Hurricane Beryl and the relief efforts and how we can accelerate a lot of the recovery areas. And yesterday in Parliament, the Most Honourable and Wholeness, our Prime Minister, would have spent some time updating on elements of the government's relief and recovery efforts. Some of the key highlights that we have to note again is that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security has distributed 9,005 food packages, and those are not little food packages. Those are very substantial food packages. Those are big packages that can last a family of four for 4 days. So that's been going quite well. They've also distributed almost 2,000 tarpaulins, and almost 700 mattresses have also been done. 1,200 hygiene kits and 450 cases of water have been distributed in the affected areas. In terms of the recovery effort, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development will be assigning 500 summer workers from the Youth Summer Employment Program to assist with the recovery efforts. They'll be working across ODPEM, and also they will be working with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. So 200 of them will be with the Ministry of Labour, and then there will be another 300 who will be working with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. Very importantly, in terms of supporting our Jamaicans to get back on their feet, that is a priority. That was a priority in terms of the discussions in Cabinet on Monday, and you would have heard that we are looking at grants to small businesses or micro businesses. Many very small shops that are in our communities were affected significantly, and we are working at grants to up to 2,000 business operators or small business operators who really do need our help so that they can get on their feet. Grants of up to $100,000 each. We're also doing damage assessments across the country. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security and their social workers have been going around to many houses in the affected areas, and as they go around, they are checking for damage. They're looking at who's been severely damaged, who had minor damage, and those who were completely destroyed. And those assessments are actually written up. They're going to be put into a database, so we will have a database of everybody who was affected by Hurricane Beryl. If you've been affected and no social worker has come out to you, you can reach out to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, and they can come and do an assessment. As the Prime Minister said, all of the grants and aid that we will be doing in terms of reconstruction will go to those who have been assessed as having sustained damage during the hurricane. We have to be accountable, we have to have transparency, and so it's going to be very important that if you've been affected in the hurricane, that you have been assessed by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security and your information is in our database. And so the Prime Minister also noted that $1 billion would be allocated for grants and assistance aimed at restoration, reconstruction, and relocation efforts. And so anyone who has been affected, know that the government understands. The government understands that you need help, you need assistance, and we are working as hard as we can to provide that assistance to you. But of course, that assistance has to be done within a framework of accountability and transparency. In addition to that, mortgagors who have been affected by Hurricane Beryl, who need to do urgent property repairs, can apply for a temporary moratorium of 3 to 6 months from the NHT, and this is a moratorium on your mortgage payments, and that's very important. So if you are affected, you can go to the NHT. The NHT is a very caring organization. They understand, and they have indicated that if anyone is having any difficulty as a result of Hurricane Beryl in paying their mortgages, that they just need to reach out. In addition to that, the NHT is providing home grants to assist with repairs, and this will be available and based on the level of need and the impact you have had. And what's important about this, and this is again showing that we're not just focused on one group and not another group. We're focused on everyone. So even if you do not have a mortgage from NHT, you can benefit from the grant if you are a contributor. So if you are paying your NHT every month, but you've never gotten a benefit from the NHT, you qualify for a grant. So that is a much broader pool than what we discussed in terms of the moratorium, and I urge those who are affected to take advantage of that. In terms of utilities, I will not go into that because Minister Tavares, who's been ably championing the cause of every Jamaican to have their electricity back in place and to have good telecoms infrastructure back in place, will be briefing you shortly in relation to that. But a lot of work has been done, and he has worked tirelessly with the utilities to ensure that they understand that it is their responsibility to quickly get us back up and to get electricity to those who do not have it. In terms of other areas tangential to Hurricane Beryl, the tourism numbers remain strong. I know this was a concern for a lot of people. What would happen to the tourism sector? We know this is an important element of our economy. Since July 4, Jamaica has hosted 1,005 visitors, signifying a recovery of the tourism industry following Hurricane Beryl, and it speaks to the resilience of our tourism product. And we know how important that is, and it is important that we emphasize the fact that Jamaica is open for business. We still are, a lot of tourists are still coming, they're still enjoying our country, and we want to emphasize that they can still come. And when we talk about resilience, in St. Elizabeth, for example, the Black River Safari Tour, they were affected significantly. We all know that, but they're already back up and open. That says a lot about our people. We are resilient, and our tourism product is getting more and more resilient. And so those 105,000 visitors who've come since July 4, they are testament to that fact. The last thing I want to point out is, again, in relation to major crimes and the trend downward in major crimes, and we don't talk about this enough. When the crime numbers are going up, we get a lot of press around it. When it is going down, it is not given the same kind of airplay. And so, again, I note major crime continue their downward trend. Serious crimes between January 1 to July 13, 2024, when you compare it to 2023, show a downward trend. Murders are down 14.1%. Shootings are down 1.2%. There's a 32% reduction in rapes, 14.8% reduction in robberies, and a 6.7% reduction in break-ins. Major crimes within the comparative period are therefore down 11.7%. Gun seizures are up. Comparing January 1 to June 30 of this year versus last year, the JCF has seized 14,000 more weapons. Is there more work to do? Definitely. But when we are on the right path, it is important that we note it, and that we note it quite loudly. This is an area that is obviously one of the most important areas for us to tackle as a country. And when we see the progress that's been made by our police force especially, and all of those aligned with this, we have to give them credit, and we need to thank them for that work. And we know the work continues. The work has to continue because where we are is not where we need to be. But we celebrate these wins, and we celebrate the fact that major crimes continue to trend downwards. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to be handing over the microphone to our esteemed Minister of Science, Energy, Technical Communications and Transport, the Honourable Darrell Vass. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Jamaica. I just received an update minutes before coming here, so I'm actually just going to read from the report as it relates to the restoration of electricity island-wide. Just to put it in context, they have completed their assessment at JPS in relation to the damage, and they had 94 transmission structures damaged, 2,602 light poles damaged, 4,287 damaged conductors, 137 damaged transformers, and 2,185 other transmission and distribution equipment damaged. So the JPS did suffer significant damage, infrastructure damage, with the passing of Beryl, all island. The good news is, or the question that would come after, is can they afford to fix it? And the answer to that is yes. Arising from the experiences of previous hurricanes and the difficulty of securing insurance for JPS assets, the OUR had approved in the rates for electricity a charge which goes to what is called the Electricity Disaster Fund, from which where there can be initial immediate resort to fund recovery when there is a disaster such as Hurricane Beryl. The fund currently has an accumulated value in the region of $50 million, and JPS will be allowed to draw down on this fund for its recovery. As a matter of fact, the OUR had approved a drawdown of $5 million prior to the hurricane to help fund inventory preparations for the hurricane season. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's good news. The bottom line is that they did spend close to $5 million to get inventory prior to hurricane season, and unfortunately, at the beginning of the hurricane season, Beryl hit Jamaica. Secondly, and most importantly, the issue of external help. I had a discussion on Monday morning at 9 o'clock with the JPS management team, where I insisted that the time had come for external assistance based on the suffering of the Jamaican people, based on the gaps that exist in the supply across every parish. So aside and apart from the harder hit areas, South St. Elizabeth, Manchester, and Southern Clarendon, the fact is that we are going today, as a matter of fact, would be 3 weeks since Beryl passed, and we still have significant amounts of persons without electricity and, of course, some without light. The external local contractors from the bauxite industry have been sought and assigned to Hanover and St. Elizabeth. Support requested from CARILEC, Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation. I can confirm that Belize and Suriname have agreed to send persons, and also Trinidad and Guyana. I had a conversation this morning with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, for which I asked her to please reach out to all of our brother and sister countries to see what assistance can be given in the shortest possible time. The time has come for external assistance so that whatever is outstanding can be done in the shortest possible time. Let me go to the critical matter of critical government agencies and institutions. All major hospitals have been restored, and I'm happy to indicate that based on a meeting with Minister Sambuda and the Chairman and CEO of JPS, we have been able to move the NWC priority pumping sites from 52% to 81% as of this morning. So it means that more water pumping stations will be in effect, and persons that are not currently getting water from the NWC will be getting. The Prime Minister would have mentioned yesterday evening in Parliament that for those that are still having issues based on the geographic locations, that instructions have been given to the Water Commission to rent generators to get those up until such time as JPS can catch up. So what we are doing is a two-pronged approach to connect back as many as possible and to use generators where possible for the balance of water supplies. Happy to report 51% of customers in St. Elizabeth have been restored, and the key areas restored: sections of Black River Junction, Alligator Pond, Papel, Good Hope, Santa Cruz, Crane Road, and Watchwell, and many more to come on stream between now and weekend. Happy to report that in relation to the major healthcare centers, that significant progress has been made, and basically almost all are back up in operation with electricity. These are the critical numbers for the NWC pumps, and I'm going to take the time to read it out because it's important, especially for the persons in these particular parishes. Clarendon, total amount of pumps 25, restored 21. Manchester 11, restored 5. St. Elizabeth 12, restored 3. Hanover 7 from 7. Westmoreland 8, 7 restored. St. James 22, 21 restored. Trelawney 9, 8 restored. St. Anne 11, 9 restored. St. Mary 6, 5 restored. Portland 5, 4 restored. St. Thomas 4 from 4. Kingston and St. Andrew 20, 19 restored. And St. Catherine 39 and 36 restored. So you see from there that Manchester, St. Elizabeth are the two parishes that are lagging behind. And as I said earlier, that you will see an improvement in that. And I know that as it relates to generators, will be used in the interim, as I said before. JPS can bring them back up. I'll say the telecoms for after. As of midnight, July 16, 2024, outside of St. Elizabeth, there was, up to Sunday, 55,000 customers that were not restored. As of Monday to Tuesday, there was 35,960. So there was a significant reduction across all parishes. And I'm thankful to say that by...
I can tell that she has a great sense of humor, but she hasn't told me a joke yet.
Want a career as a pet psychic?
Still not good enough, because we still have 20,000 customers across Jamaica that do not have electricity. So again, I want to just ask and plead with the country for patience. I represent a rural constituency, so I'm not only getting it second hand from all of my colleagues in Parliament and the communities that reach out to me. But I'm getting it firsthand based on the fact that I am on top of what is happening in Portland. And they too are suffering. But we are resilient. I just want to give another personal commitment, a commitment on behalf of the government of Jamaica, that I'm not going to stop until we get restoration and get back to normality. You have my assurance on that, and I ask you, just as I did for the transport sector, I'm asking for the energy sector, just to have a little patience and give me a little time. You will see the difference. In relation to, well, I don't want to talk too much about the areas that were restored between the 15th and the 16th. I prefer to speak about what's going to happen for the 17th to the 19th. And what you can also be assured of is that you are going to get or be able to access a 2-day, 3-day projection for JPS's restoration on their website, on social media, and wherever else. And I believe that communication is one of the most important things in a crisis, which is what we are in. So I encourage people to monitor the JPS website and all other areas where you can access credible information. So as I said, I won't go into the 15th and 16th, but significant progress has been made there. So what do we have to look forward to for the 17th to the 19th? All parishes will continue to get rapid restoration. I will just speak to the hardest hit areas, but this will be available for circulation when I am concluded. So Minister Green, who is here, St. Elizabeth, Good Hope, Crane Road, Bennett Street, Goshen, Lovers Lane, Newell, Knockwood, Silo, Pepper, Church Road, Balaclava, Treasure Beach, Watchwell, to Pedro, and Parkley and Bull Savannah. Now let me just stop and say that I have no reason to doubt the JPS because I am on them. But based on what I saw in southern St. Elizabeth, Alligator Pod, and southern Clarendon last week, Wednesday, when I did a tour, and I intend to do another tour this coming week to see the progress for myself. If somebody had told me that Treasure Beach could be scheduled to get back light this weekend, before this weekend, then that would be magical based on the disruption that I saw. If somebody was to tell me that St. Elizabeth could be 51% back up between last week Tuesday and last week Wednesday and today again. So I'm pleased to see that particular progress, but still not pleased with so many other areas that were not hard hit, that people are questioning and asking why is it they cannot get back their electricity till now. Let me give you another area that I toured last week, and that was Alligator Pond and the surrounding areas. So Manchester, Waltham, Cedar Grove, Rent Land, Russell Place, Newport, McKinley Road, Sedberg, towards Christiana, Duff House, Lincoln to Huntley, Bud Closed, and Dump. And of course, these are not all. If the website would have more information. I can't end the section without speaking to what I consider an area that was devastated, and that is southern Clarendon. Again, I was there last week, Wednesday, and there was only devastation and destruction. You could barely drive and navigate the poles on the road. And aside and apart from what has been done already, it is intended to be done between today and the 19th of July, going into the weekend. Belfield to Bellasgate, Muck Denby, Crawl, Racetrack, Portland Cottage, Rocky Point to Linetown Housing Scheme, Kemps Hill, Racecourse, Water Lane, Milk River, Dallas Cross, Hallett Drive, Salt River Road, Inverness, Watermount, Mundletown, Pennant Wood, Chateau, Fairfield, Longsville Boulevard, Bistro, Del Mar, going west, Freetown, Browns Hall, Sedberg, Mundletown, New Longville, Mucker Road, Ashley, Rose Hill, Peter King intersection, Hazard Drive, and Trenton Road. Again, that's on top of what has already been restored. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm just highlighting the fact that the worst affected areas are fast becoming back restored. And that is because, again, of a plan which was executed to put a task force in those areas to make sure that they could get the treatment they needed based on the devastation which existed. So I will just quickly do the telcos who are performing well. Sorry, just got the report, so I'm trying to find my way through it here. Okay, here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, for digital, they are at 69% of their sites, 96 sites and 66 restored. And for flow, 50%, 658 sites, 331 restored. So you will see better service as the days go, and as electricity comes back, you will see and get, obviously, better telco service for both data and cell service. Let me close by just touching on another portfolio responsibility, although Beryl has taken all the joy out of it for me, and that is the 100 CNG buses that I committed to the country that would be here by mid-year at the end of last year. I'm happy to say, and which has been already highly publicized and very well received, that between May 23 and July 24, the government of Jamaica has introduced 171 new buses in the JUTC fleet. $120 CNG buses. The good thing is that these 100 CNG buses are what we call, what I have branded as smart buses, like where you have a smartphone. And basically, it will allow commuters to be able to communicate with the buses. And the buses will be equipped with Wi-Fi, a camera system to allow better monitoring of the units, geo-tracking, fire suppression system, electronically controlled air suspension to allow for easy embarking and disembarking, especially for the elderly and physically challenged. And of course, 10 of the buses are specially equipped for the disabled. So in essence, what we can look forward to for next month going into back to school is a much more efficient JUTC, which will allow persons to use an app to see exactly where these buses are and the timelines, including what load they have. So you'll see if the bus is overloaded already. And several other features which will be introduced and a public education campaign done in tandem with the launch of the buses. Not to mention that we are going to be encouraging and moving towards a cashless system for the JUT, which means that in short order we'll be going completely cashless, which again will help with the revenues for the JUTC. So I don't think it's the right time to spend a lot of time on buses when people have no electricity, but just to assure you again, my Jamaican brothers and sisters, that demonstrations don't help, they hinder. I understand the frustration and I understand what has been the modus operandi previously. But in this particular situation, it will impede the ability of the JPS to respond, and JPS is not going to come to areas that are having demonstrations and high tensions because they are worried for their safety of their employees. Let us just use the regular communication. You can reach out to me, you can WhatsApp me, you can social media, whatever it is, and any area that is still having an issue will be brought to the attention of the JPS, and I will personally follow through to make sure that it is restored in the shortest possible time. Again, for the harshly affected areas, the date for complete restoration is the 5th of August, just in time for independence and emancipation. However, as I said, plenty restoration is happening and will continue to happen. So you're not going to wait until the 5th for one switch and all lights in St. Elizabeth and Clarendon come on. And secondly, for the other outstanding areas, the gap areas as I call them, which are all across Jamaica, we are working towards the end of next week to have the majority of them, with a few left for the week ending end of July. So we are almost there. Let us just continue to show the resilience and patience and continue to pray to the Almighty for help, which is coming, and more importantly, that we don't get any more storms or hurricanes or anything until we can recover from this. Thank you very much. All questions?
Oh, yes. I anticipate there may be some questions, Minister, and we have our Press Secretary, Naomi Francis, who is going to lead us through.
Fantastic. Thank you, Minister. Good morning, Ministers, and good morning to everyone. We do have two representatives from the media and some questions online. Let's start off with Mahir as usual.
Morning, Minister. Mahir Stewart from Nationwide here. I asked this... Yeah. Yeah, so I asked last week to the ministers that were speaking, so I guess I'll just keep asking any minister that comes up from here on out. Seeing that we are now 2 weeks removed from the passage of Hurricane Beryl, given your portfolio, is there any aspect of the rebuilding or the restoration process, whether it be telecommunications or energy, that you believe you've learned lessons from or can improve on in the event that Jamaica is hit with another weather system in the rest of the year?
So I think that this will give us, the last hurricane that we had was 2004, if I'm not mistaken. I was at Ivan. So there's a significant time that has passed since that last event, weather event. And I do believe that this experience will give us reason to have a deep dive in relation to what really transpired in relation to the overall grid. Just bearing in mind that the grid did not collapse as would have been expected. It went down to 30%. If it had gone down fully, we would be talking a different talk at Postcard this morning. So we have to give some credit for that, because that's actually miraculous. But yes, and the issue of whether or not the time has come for burying the lines is definitely up for discussion. the information that I have is that to bury as against put above is 7 times more the cost in relation to putting above ground than below ground. However, question is, do we have 7 times the value in relation to the destruction? So that discussion has to take place. I do believe that there are lessons to be learned, both in terms of the JPS and both in terms of government, in terms of how we prepare and what we do. You would have seen the Prime Minister speak about giving a mandate now for generators for all major health clinics, generators for all major water pumps, NWC pumps and other infrastructure. So it has gotten the attention in relation to where the biggest impact has been caused. So the answer to your question, sir, is yes, the time has come.
I guess my second question would be, given that you're saying that we will be importing workers from different Caribbean countries to help in the restoration process, would that mean that the projected date in which people should expect should be decreased, or is it still August 5?
It would mean that the schedule that is presented this morning, which was given to me at minutes to 9, does not include that. By today, end of day today, I would know exactly what the confirmation is in relation to who, from where, how many, and what are they coming to do, and then a revisit to the schedule will be done. But the intention is definitively to get help. And good thing is that this is an association of Caribbean utility companies. So it's persons that have worked with one another and know one another. So the bottom line is that they are going to be asked to send exactly what is needed by JPS rather than just sending help. So it will be a proper design plan to enhance the abilities of JPS. Bearing in mind that JPS has also, aside and apart from pulling that trigger, has also gotten the bauxite companies, brought on old employees, retired employees of the JPS, and additional subcontractors. So a lot has been done here, which we are seeing the effect of. But yes, I do believe that external, meaning external outside of Jamaica, the time has come for that, to get this last lap in relation to the 20,000 customers still out of electricity at the end of this week back up.
Right. Another question. Given what you just said about demonstrations, you know that there was one in Sheffield, Westmoreland yesterday. Just for clarity, are you saying that the August 5th deadline also applies to that area?
All areas that are accessible by the JPS in relation to being able to go in and do the work. If areas have demonstrations and prolonged issues where the JPS cannot access, then that's a problem. And most importantly, do not forget that we are not in control of the weather. We saw what happened yesterday with the rain. If we get rain in different areas, then it will delay because the lines cannot work when there's inclement weather. So again, there are variables, but the most important thing is that we have a roadmap. And we just need to follow this roadmap and tweak it to make sure that we can shorten the timelines and not lengthen the timelines. That's my mandate.
Thank you, Minister. So therefore, I'm just making sure that the person online acknowledges that I have received a question concerning timelines for crews to arrive. You're saying you'll get that update later on today. Yes.
So there have been in discussions from Monday when I met, and I know for sure that 2 of the Caribbean countries have agreed. It's just to tie down the specifics, but they know the urgency. And I hope to get something from Minister Johnson Smith by later today in relation to what feedback she has gotten based on the offers that were made previously as well.
All right, so Minister,
I encourage everybody again, please, this document that I read from is for public consumption. And I encourage everybody to just stay on the JPS website, on social media. They post daily, I post daily, and you will see if there are areas not on this, it will be on the website, because this document can hold every area in every parish. So people will panic that they don't see their name on this summary sheet, but they will see it on the website. And if it's not, then we raise that and flag that to JPS.
Thank you. So they can post their questions or...
100%. I encourage them to use the JPS social media respond, and I'm sure based on the meeting that I had with them, they understand the meaning of true communication.
Right. Two questions coming out as well, one for you, one for Minister Morris Dixon. Mr. Vaz, concerning the community access points on the USF, there's been no update on that. Can you give us one?
So that is something that I raised just day before yesterday. I expect to get a report, but I would have expected that obviously some of them would have been affected, but we will get them back up in short order. There are agreements in place with the vendors who put them up for repairs and service, and I will have that and post that as well.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Morris Dixon, the question is, the Prime Minister announced yesterday a revamping of the disaster committee. Do you have any further information that would clarify how it will be designed going forward?
All right, thank you for that question. And, you know, it links back to the previous question that was asked of Minister Vaz in terms of, is there anything that we could do better? And I think this administration is one that is always striving to do better. And I think what the Prime Minister was pointing out is that we will be doing a review of our response, pre-burial, during burial, post-burial. We'll be doing that assessment and making recommendations in terms of how we can even be better. And as Minister Vaz said, it's been many years since we've had any kind of impact like this. And so you can get rusty during that period. And it is important that we understand that, especially with climate change, these types of weather events are going to be more frequent. And we have to be ready to respond, and not just government, but also our private sector partners have to build in a lot more resilience into their work. And so that assessment will be done. Once it is done, we will revamp the systems in place, and we'll obviously come back to Jamaica and say, this is what we have found, and these are the areas we will adjust.
Thank you. Before I go back to Mahiri, I have one from Devon Keys, the business editor at TVJ, who's asking Minister Vaz, Minister, who will bear the cost of the overseas crews coming?
I think that will be a matter between JPS and their utility companies in the Caribbean. There's an association, as I said. There has been no demand or request of government to this point to participate, but I suspect they have their own arrangements and protocols. And don't forget that we have done the same in the past. Dominica and other islands, Jamaica sent assistance through Army and other government entities. So there is a protocol in there. And as you say, that is the last thing I want to say is that fund that I mentioned, the $50 million fund, which is built into the tariffs, is also specifically to make sure that those funds can be used by JPS, and JPS doesn't have to fund the recovery, which would drive up the price of electricity. So we can expect, based on the fact that they will be drawing on this fund, that the OUR would not be in a position to approve any increase in JPS utility bills on the heels of burial. So I think that should also be stated as a kind of comfort to those persons who are suffering as we speak, who are customers of JPS.
And that's a very crucial point, Minister. Let's go back here. You had another one, and then we'll probably just wrap up and then go to Minister Green.
Yes, Minister. One more thing. Following your tour of the southern parishes, we know that members of the private sector, Michael Leach and Melchisiaga, they've both called on the private sector to help Jamaica in this rebuilding process. Given your tour of those parishes, is there any aspect of the rebuilding process that you think the private sector could be paramount in fixing?
So the biggest issue for the residents in those affected areas is roof damage and damage to their livelihoods. And unless they can earn, they can't support themselves. And those are areas that I think would be meaningful The government, as you know, mentioned, Prime Minister announced a $1 billion fund yesterday. $1 billion in the scheme of things is not a huge amount of money for the destruction that is there. But yes, we need to get the persons back under a roof and get them back earning. And I think that's an area that the private sector could partner with the government to make sure that that happens in a rapid pace. The fishing villages, they're all wiped out. That's the livelihood. Alligator Pond, Fishing Village, Rocky Point, Portland Cottage, Micheltown. That's their livelihood, fishing. So again, there's plenty of things that can be done to assist that sector as well as the regular farmers. But I'm sure Minister Green will speak more to that. But my answer to your question is help the people to restore their houses to good order and get back into production, be able to earn and pay their way.
Thank you, Minister Vaz,
Thank you very
as
much.
always. And now we are going to have the Honourable Floyd Green, our Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, do his presentation this morning in terms of the assessments in agriculture and fishing, and also the plans that he has to assist those individuals. Minister Green.
Thank you very much, Senator Morris Dixon and colleague Minister Vaz. I do have members of the team. Our acting CEO of RADA is here, and our senior director, that's Ms. Marina Young, our acting CEO of RADA, and our senior director, Michael Price, who is in charge of our Hurricane Burial Task Force, Recovery Task Force. I wanted to smile when I start, but Minister Vaz has rushed out, but I did hear him mention my community, where I live now on Crane Road in Black River, where I live, that we will be getting back electricity. And boy, I tell you, that would be really a joy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you for joining us. I would love to provide an overview of the impact of Hurricane Beryl on our agriculture and fisheries sector and outline our immediate response and some of the elements of what will be our long-term response. I will make the point that what we decided to do in the Ministry of Agriculture is to reallocate a number of the funds that we already had to provide an immediate response, because we appreciate that timeliness is critical and that the quicker we can get our farmers and fishers back out is better for all of us and better for our country. We will be speaking to the Ministry of Finance in relation to a more long-term response and in relation to more financing in that regard. Hurricane Beryl has had a devastating impact on our agriculture and fisheries sector, particularly in the parishes of St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Clarendon, Westmoreland, and St. Catherine. 23,040 hectares of agricultural land has been affected. 48,852 farmers have been impacted, and that is at our last count. The estimated damage is $4.7 billion. We've seen losses across all our crop lines, but our domestic and vegetable crops suffered the biggest loss, $1.95 billion in damage. That includes things like sweet pepper, tomato, cabbage, lettuce, of course our tubers, cassava, yam, our poultry farmers, I'll go to shortly, but also our fruits, especially those on the vines, our melons, our cantaloupes in South St. Elizabeth did suffer tremendously. We would have seen $385 million in damage for banana and plantain farmers. Again, of our commercial banana and plantain farmers, 90% of them suffered a complete loss. Livestock, we saw a lot of losses to our poultry farmers in particular, especially our small-scale poultry farmers, and they saw losses not just on their chicken side, but also on their infrastructure in relation to poultry. We also saw losses in relation to pigs, cattle, small ruminants, all of that amounting to $350 million. One area that we sometimes don't speak a lot about, but is very, very important to our agricultural sector, are our beekeepers, apiculture. Now, bees are essential to the ecosystem of agriculture, and unfortunately, our apiculture sector did suffer tremendous damage. We saw over 640 bee colonies being lost because of Hurricane Beryl. Our greenhouse farmers were at the front line of the devastation. In fact, in St. Elizabeth, it's almost a 100% loss to all greenhouse structures. And across parishes like Clarendon, Manchester, we're looking at about 90% loss. So we did see extensive damage to our greenhouses, also to our farm roads, buildings, and our irrigation systems. In relation to our fisheries sector, 11,200 fishers have been affected by Hurricane Beryl, most of them losing fishing gear or traps, what we would have seen a number of fishers, and I want to again commend our fishers. They did take significant precautionary measures. A number of them went out and they pulled in their boats. I remember touring parts of my constituency on the Tuesday before Beryl, and people had brought in their boats significantly inland. And I think that is why we only are seeing about 10% in terms of damage to vessels. Also, they did a very good job of leaving the Keys. And I want to commend them, because in the past, we've had a very hard time getting people to leave the Keys. And even though we didn't suffer significant devastation on the Keys, it's better to be safe than sorry. And again, I came across a number of them who were here online, and we want to just commend the efforts of our fishers. So a number of them would have lost their fish traps. So when they would have gone back out to try and find their fish traps, unfortunately, they're not there. We estimate about $1 billion in losses in relation to fish gear and traps. We have seen significant losses across infrastructural damage across our fishing beaches, especially Old Harbour Bay, Bournemouth, Rocky Point, and parts of St. Elizabeth. All of that amounts to about $70 million. Another area that we saw significant damage, that is under the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, is our public gardens and scenic avenues. Unfortunately, a lot of felled trees, a lot of uprooted plants in places like Castleton, Syncona, and the Bath Botanical Gardens. The most damage was suffered by our Holland Bamboo Scenic Avenue, with about 70 to 80% of the older bamboo being damaged. Thankfully, we have a restoration plan for Holland Bamboo. We have costed the amount it will take to put our gardens back in the position that they were before Beryl and to lead to the rebuilding, and it's about $31 million, and we will need an all-hands-on-deck approach for this, especially from the private sector and the tourism sector. But for Holland Bamboo, we have a $17 million plan to get Holland Bamboo back up and running. Thankfully, we had started a process of planting new bamboo. We're now going through the scenic avenue to clear the bamboo and see what can be saved and restored. We already had a nursery that we had established, so we will quickly start to transfer bamboo into the Holland Bamboo Scenic Avenue. So in response to this disaster, the ministry has mobilized resources and developed an immediate recovery plan. Our key actions include, one, allocating $700 million for short-term assistance that affected farmers and fishers, including the purchasing of critical items and the repairing of infrastructure. $550 million of that $700 million will be allocated as follows. $210 million will be focused on our crop lines, $90 million towards our vegetable lines, banana planting will get support directly for about $40 million, and $80 million will be distributed across other crops, including yam and our coffee farmers. We've put $60 million to help our livestock farmers restart their activity, and another $26 million to look at infrastructure around livestock. I did make the point that a number of people lost the critical infrastructure for their chickens or for their small ruminants. Fisheries, we have about $29 million to start the process, especially of purchasing wire, so that we can help our fishers reconstruct their pots and get back out there. We've allocated about $30 million to fertilizer. We've allocated $55 million to help our greenhouse farmers. Irrigation, $20 million. We put a $50 million allocation for land preparation and clearance. We do understand that one of the impacts of burial is that a number of trees have fallen into our farms, and our farmers need some help to clear the land to get ready to plant again. So we made an allocation for that. And we've allocated $70 million to focus on the clearing and some rehabilitation of our farm roads. We will also be channeling $150 million through our members of parliament. That will be prorated based on the level of damage in the constituency. The allocations should be utilized over the next 4 weeks, and we'll go through a verification process to ensure that those who benefit would have in fact suffered damage through hurricane burial. Just to say, we've taken a comprehensive approach to the response mechanism for hurricane burial, and I'll make the point that we've also institutionalized disaster management and recovery. So since January, we would have had teams meeting across our various agencies that are focusing on disaster risk management, mitigation, and recovery, because we do know that the disaster will come. And as such, we had already started the process of procuring inputs, especially for our vegetable farmers, and we will start that distribution tomorrow. So we are really working to get our farmers back up and running as quickly as possible. We have established a Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining Hurricane Burial Response and Recovery Task Force to coordinate relief efforts. That's headed by Director Michael Price. What we've done is bring together all our agencies and also the JAS, and we're working also with the private sector to ensure that we do not have duplication of effort. So where we have entities and we want to commend them, like the United Way, that have established a fund, and they'll be looking to go out to respond to farmers. We want to coalesce and ensure that we have the list together so that if they have reached those farmers, then we can focus on other farmers in relation to support. We do appreciate that our extension officers, whether on our fisheries side or on our agricultural side, will not reach to everybody who's been damaged. We appreciate that fact. And that's why we have established a customer service hotline for people who want to report the damage directly to us. And that is 888-275-7232. So that's 888-AXE-RADA. So it's 275-7232. You can call it with RADA issues or fisheries issues. We will channel it to the National Fisheries Authority, and we will take that information and clearly pass it to the teams so that they can be some verification. Again, through the $700 million, we will focus immediately on the provision of things like livestock feed, farming tools, again, support for rebuilding of our greenhouse and farm structures. We look at irrigation systems, and we will also be looking at where there are shortfalls in supply and where we may need to look at temporary import measures to bridge supply gaps and to maintain food availability. One of the things that we're doing is collaborating with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to identify those farmers and fishers that have had significant damage to their houses. The truth is, our farmers can't get back going if they still have to be focused on rebuilding their houses or putting back roofs on their houses. So we're working with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. What we have done in that regard, we've asked our RADA and fisheries team, where they are out in the field and they come across a farmer or a fisher who has suffered a major or a complete loss, to compile a list so that we can pass that to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security so that they can be made a priority. And we think that's important. Additionally, the Jamaica Bauxite Mining Limited will be contributing $20 million to help us in the process of helping those farmers and fishers get back some security in relation to their households. We want to thank the private sector. They have really shown up thus far in a very big way, and a number of them are launching initiatives to help our farmers and fishers. We also want to thank our NGO groupings, especially the United Way, which has established a fund for immediate response to our farmers, and the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange and the NCB Foundation, who've partnered to again raise some capital to help our farmers. Again, this is the start of the season. And that is an unfortunate reality that we face. So what we have outlined is our immediate response. We will look to do some more substantial interventions after we finalize our discussions with the Ministry of Finance. Clearly, we want to focus on the enhancement of storage and processing capacities. We want to strengthen our local distribution networks. We want to ensure that our critical pumping stations under the National Irrigation Commission have backup generators to support the supply of electricity. That is very, very important for us. And continue to collaborate with the Meteorological Service to see how we can ensure that our farming communities have these early warning systems. Two more issues that I will raise before closing. Even before the onset of Hurricane Beryl, we've been working with our yam farmers around yam rust disease, which has presented itself in Jamaica. And we had dispatched a team from RAD, from Bodles, our research and development unit, to look at how we can help our farmers cauterize the spread of yam rust and clearly save their crops. Again, we've tried to be as proactive as possible. We've used our surveillance systems, and we have already now procured $9 million in fungicides that we will be distributing to our farmers that have been impacted. We start that distribution tomorrow to help the yam rust farmers treat with the issue of yam rust. One more issue that has been a point of discussion, clearly with the significant devastation caused by Hurricane Beryl, a number of questions have come in relation to what are we going to do regarding our Dembe agricultural show. This is the 70th year of Dembe, and as such, clearly we know that Dembe is a celebration of our farmers, and now more than ever, as they show resilience in this time, we wanted to see how could we still celebrate our farmers. But we do appreciate that a number of our farmers will be hard pressed to provide the usual support that they normally provide for Dembe. So we've been in discussions with Jamaica Agricultural Society, with our stakeholders internally, and what we want to do this year is to have a one-day show that will focus on our farmers. We'll focus on resilience and rebuilding. We'll do a combination of things like seminars about disaster preparedness, about disaster recovery, and also offer various discounts, incentives that our farmers can benefit from. We will also establish a window where those farmers who have not yet received assistance, who've been damaged, will be able to come, give that information so that we can channel some support to them. So finally, Hurricane Beryl passed, and the task ahead is challenging, but thankfully it is not insurmountable. I can tell you without a doubt, our most resilient people in Jamaica are our farmers and fishers. Their spirit is something that is hard to describe in words, because as I move around and interact with them, all of them, despite the devastation, are ready to get back out and to do what they love, what they're passionate about, which is to provide food for all of us. The government and the ministry stands ready to help our farmers, and our fishers. Your resilience inspires us. We will walk this recovery journey together. We will walk it with the private sector. Every contribution brings us closer to recovery and resilience. And finally, for all Jamaicans, the best way to help our farmers and fishers during this time is to buy local. If we go out, support their produce, support our fish markets, then it will inspire them to keep doing what they love. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Green. Let's see if there are any questions. We've gone a little bit over time, but it's important to get all this information out.
Absolutely, Minister. I know Mahiri has two questions. I have one, though, Minister, that really takes off from what you said last, which is buy local, but there is a concern online, especially with the coming weeks and possible shortages. What are we looking at in terms of possible shortages, and how quickly we be be able to look at importing to ensure that prices stay low?
Yeah, so, the first thing that we do, and the first thing that our farmers do, and you would see it across the marketplace, is as soon as they go out and see what has happened to their fields, they try to salvage what is there. And they go through a process of seeing if they can save anything and if they can bring that to market. So it may mean applied chemicals to try and bring the crop to fruition. So over the last week, this week, we will get a fair idea of where we are in terms of fall-offs in supply. We do already appreciate that we will have some fall-off in our vegetable lines. So definitely, as I said, things like cabbage, lettuce, we've already started to pick that up. Tomatoes, carrots, we already appreciate that we will have some fall-off in those vegetable lines. So as we get this picture and as we concretize this picture, we will move to have some supplemental supply, right? But the other good news is that a number of these crops are what in agriculture we call cash crops. They're quick crops. They're crops that if you put the farmers in a position to get back out in the field, then they can work very hard to have us back up and running in week 6, 8, 12, weeks to have us back up and running. So we will look at where we are coming to the end of this week in relation to the supply and the fall off in supply. Again, a number of our markets, supply markets for these items are near shore, so we don't have to worry about time frame to get here. Clearly, it has to be managed in a way that will ensure that, yes, we look at price, but we don't flood the market in such a way that it de-incentivizes our farmers from getting back up and running. So we will have to do that balance. So I want Jamaica to rest assured that we are sufficiently seized of the information that we will move to ensure that there aren't significant breaks in any of our supply chains. So you can rest assured in that regard.
All right. Thank you, Minister. Mahiri?
Morning, Minister. I'm still doing the rounds, asking as many ministers as I can this one question. We are now 2 weeks removed from Hurricane Beryl. Yeah? So with
CarParts.com always delivers, and they carry OE quality parts. Now that's my speed.
What we've learned on the negative side, on the negative side. I'm very, very happy that a few years ago, probably 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, we institutionalized disaster management, mitigation, and recovery, things of that nature. And we did it in such a way that we not only formed our overall committee, but our entities like a RADA, like a AIC, they have these disaster committees. And they start meeting very early in the year. And why I'm happy of that, if we never took that approach, then I couldn't be here 2 weeks after and say that we're going to respond tomorrow. You know, one of the concerns that I've had as minister over the years is that when we have these issues, these weather events, it takes a long time to go through the process to be able to respond. And it's never that the team doesn't want to respond. I mean, all of us want to respond immediately, but the procurement process is the procurement process. So this time we, for example, started to procure vegetable seeds from before there was the announcement of storms. So our vegetable seeds are here, so we can say tomorrow we're going out into St. Elizabeth and we're going to be targeting the hardest hit parishes first, and we'll literally start that distribution to our farmers. Clearly, we won't get to every farmer, but we'll be able to start and say, listen, you can go back out in the field, you're in a position, we'll provide you with some support. So I think one of the lessons that has been validated, institutionalize these structures. Don't wait, have them, because the truth is, as I've said to the team, and as the team knows, the disaster will come. Last year was drought. We had our driest, hottest year ever. And then we did still have rain events. This year, we have a hurricane early in the season. So that has worked. One of the lessons on the negative side, we have to have backup power for all our irrigation systems. I can tell you in the irrigation zones, those farmers are normally the quickest to get back up because they don't have to contend with the supply of water. They have that. And water is normally one of your biggest issues. So as we have been able, and to put it in context, clearly after burial, 100% of our systems were down. We had no electricity for any system. Thankfully, now we're at 70%. A number of our systems, included in parts of Clarendon, like Ebony Park, Clarendon Park, those systems have come back up. In Manchester, that Duff House, New Forest system has come back up, but we still have areas with no system operational. And what we have to be doing now, as we're doing in St. Elizabeth today, and we started since Monday, is installing generators so that we can get those systems back up and running. So one of the learnings is that we have to have these backup power supplies to ensure that we are able to keep going if the electricity goes. And additionally, I didn't speak to it, the one other thing is areas to safely store agricultural equipment. Sometimes we overlook that, right? And again, what you had in burial was debris flying left, right, and center. And in our designs, we will have to have these sort of safe houses, these storage houses that we can move our equipment into to ensure that they're free from that risk.
Right. I guess my second question would be, how are your constituents? I know your constituency was one of the worst hit, and we did hear Minister Vaz speaking about things he believes the private sector could help with in terms of the rebuilding. Is there anything you may have left out that you think your constituency would need in the rebuilding process?
Yeah, so it's been a difficult 2 weeks for Southwest St. Elizabeth. Not only have we been hardest hit, we have the most extensive damage. So we have at least 15 communities that would have suffered severely. And by severely, I mean 70% or more of the housing stock would have suffered damage. So it's not 1, 2, or 3, and I mean 15. And that is the severe. If you're going to count non-severe, where you probably go into a community and they have 100 houses and 4 have lost their roofs, right? There's still those communities that don't count in that 15. So it's been widespread. It goes all the way from Flagaman straight through to Black River. Almost all the communities on the south, included places like Newell, Geneva, all the way into Mountainside, Arlington, Vidal, all the way over the bridge into Middle Quarters, Shrewsbury. So I think the extensive nature of it makes it extremely difficult. All our roads were blocked. We had no electricity at all. I think the good news is that people have seen the effort in relation to recovery. So we're able to provide access by Sunday, at least 1-lane access across all our constituency. That helped tremendously because people could get in and get out and could get to their families. By Tuesday, most of the constituency, and this is Tuesday after, most of the constituency had 2-lane access. And access was very, very important. The challenge has now been electricity, water supply. With no electricity, no water supply. But again, we've been working on that. You would have heard Minister Vaz. So we have targeted our essential services, like the hospital. We got that up and running last week, Tuesday. And then our pump houses. And private sector has helped. And we are grateful for that. So we have been able to work through our NGO groupings. We've got generators purchased, donated. We've been able to use those generators to get some of the water systems back up and running. The truth is, as you get one water system up and running, the areas that don't have any, it becomes challenging on them. Next door neighbor might have based on the pipeline that you don't have. But what we have seen is the spirit of St. Elizabeth. People have been coming together. People have been working together to help each other. In terms of areas of support, a lot. Roofing assistance is very, very important as people try to build back. The generators for our water systems, again, we appreciate the time frames, but it's still a long time, right? And every day, it becomes more challenging for people. So the more we can get the private sector to say, let us put these generators in to serve these pumps, and if you can work with as groups and purchase these generators so that we have them if anything else were to happen, I think that would go a far way. Clearly, we have some early childhood institutions that need some support. We know the Ministry of Education has outlined a program of assistance, but what we want is, again, the more support that we have is the quicker we can get back up and running. So we know we will get back, we know we'll recover stronger. What we want to do it is in the quickest possible time.
Thank you, Minister. I have a final question, really, and I think maybe it's a little unfair, but I'll ask nonetheless, given that it's really coming off of what you just said. They wanted to know a timeline then that we can expect a full recovery, which I don't know if they plan to be...
Of the agriculture sector?
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a good question, but let me put some things in context. So, we normally report on the losses that we've suffered. We've suffered $4.7 billion on the agriculture side and $1 billion on the fisheries side, which would make $5.7 billion in total. That's the cost of loss. Normally, the rule of thumb is that the cost of recovering is 1.5 times that. So it will take us over $8 billion to get back to where we are, right? And where we were prior to burial. And, you know, it's unfortunate because we've been on a good trajectory, right? Despite the drought last year, towards the end of last year, we got back into growth. And we've been growing for the quarters. And I can tell you, the farmers have been expanding their hectares. They've been being more productive. So it will take a significant injection. Now, we appreciate that the government won't be able to do all of that. We won't be able to put back in $8 billion. But the $700 million is a start, immediate response. And what you find is the quicker you're able to respond, it brings down the length of time it takes to recover. So that's one. We will speak to the Ministry of Finance now to see how we can get some more funds to do additional things that I've spoken about. Storage, farm roads, again, put people in a position to drive that recovery. I can't give a time frame in terms of when we will get back to where we're coming from. What I do know is that based on our resilience, and based on the fact that we've been in instances like this before, and we've bounced back even stronger, we will come back stronger. We will come back stronger. Our farmers and fishers will go out there and they will plant again, they will go out and catch fish again, and they will make money again. And they will be able to take care of their families and households and to feed us. And once that happens, you will see the knock-on effect of more people appreciating that the answer is agriculture and fisheries.
Thank you. And that was the last question. Thank you, Minister Green, for that. That was very, very good. And I like the fact that you've pointed that we will rise from this and we'll be even better going forward. As we close, I wanted to say thank you to some entities and governments who've been very helpful to Jamaica, and we have to highlight the fact that we can't do this alone. Recovery is obviously everybody in Jamaica, and also we have our supporters internationally who are helping us. And I have to thank the United Nations for their significant donation to the people of Jamaica. The U.S. government, and including USAID, has done fantastic work in supporting us. The government of Japan, the government of China, the OAS, we have several countries who are also looking at how they can provide more support through CARICOM, for example, our partners in the UK and Canada. All of our key multilateral partners are also looking at how they can support us, and we thank them for that. There are many NGOs locally and internationally who have mobilized in order to assist us in the areas that have been damaged. I know there was one, World Central Kitchen, that was doing thousands of hot meals per day across the affected areas. We cannot do this on our own, and I have to say thank you to everyone, whether you're based in Jamaica or based internationally, for the support you have given to Jamaica in helping us to move forward from this crisis. As we end, let's continue to pray for this country. Let's continue to pray for those who have been affected by Hurricane Beryl, and we know that we are a resilient country. We've always been resilient, and we will rise from this crisis as we have always done. Thank you, and see you next week for another post-cabinet press briefing.
I want to say thank you all for coming on to the Make We Talk program. I know I end up using a different stream this morning and the audio is cracking up, and I do apologize for that. But nevertheless, that has been a post-cabinet press briefing from Jamaica House, courtesy of the Make We Talk program. Join us later on today when we bring you an exciting topic of what is going on in the land of wood and water and around the world. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Make We Talk Jeffrey Tavares YouTube channel. Until you hear my voice again, may God bless you. And may God continue to bless our island home, Jamaica land we love. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Have a great morning, everyone. See you all pretty soon. Thank you all very much.